Hello and welcome back to the SalesBet podcast. Not virtual this week, which means we can actually have a conversation. This week we're actually going to touch on some embarrassing stories, what it's like working for an agency, what our careers have been like, the ups and downs, the highs and lows. Last week's episode is on YouTube under the SalesBet banner, and also you can connect with myself, Jake Harris, and Chris Slater on LinkedIn. But Chris, kick us off this week with potentially one of your lows in the agency career. I'm sure there are many.
Yes, there are. Yeah. I just want to say hello, everybody. We're filming live from Chelmsford in our biosecure bubble. We've both got aftershave on because we're in person for the first time in a while, and we are filming for The Only Way is Essex afterwards, so happy days. Yes, kicking off with hashtag agency life, as it's commonly known in our sector.
Yeah.
I think in terms of lows, I think I always cast back to one meeting I had when I was sort of an up-and-comer. And I was asked,
how old were you?
I think I was 22, so I just started at my first place of work.
Yeah.
And I'd basically been asked to chair a meeting, which I was so not ready for.
What was your role at that time?
I was an onboarding executive, so I was responsible for when we'd made a point of sale, bringing the client on board, owning the relationship, working with the project manager, getting them up and running, and then into the business for sort of BAU life, I guess. Yeah.
It's quite in the deep end actually as a first role.
It is, yeah. It was great. I had an amazing boss. I got to learn about the business. Almost like I had a good role scope without a lot of like delivery responsibility, which was right for learning at the time.
Yeah, of course.
And I just wasn't ready for chairing the meeting. And my boss was trying to empower me, and it was brilliant. And I progressed so quickly under that specific boss. He was amazing. But it was like head of marketing in there. There was some real, what we call big guns.
Yeah.
And I was just a bit rattled, I guess.
With the client.
Yeah. There was 5 of our own team in our boardroom. It was right in the middle of the office. There was 5 or 6 of them.
I can imagine you shaking before you went in.
Mate, I was like, yeah. I think when you first speak, you kind of know, okay, like you're going to be okay this meeting, or you're going to not.
Yeah.
And I think after the introductions, I was like, I am beep.
Yeah.
But that was a challenge, because after that they sort of came back to my boss and said, listen, we don't think he's ready to manage our account.
Which is a bit of a setback in your first role.
Was. Yeah.
So how did that knock the confidence a little bit?
It did, but my boss told me straight away, which could have gone either way. I think he sort of saw what I might have potentially been made of, and that as a sports player, again, it's okay to receive these setbacks, and we're nowhere near perfect. We're still learning now.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about our experiences so other people can relate.
Yeah.
Just had to gain the trust back of a client gradually.
So what was the meeting about? Was it an introduction of all the services you're going to deliver and how you're going to do it? And so you opened up the meeting.
Yeah.
And what was your little quiver in the voice?
Yeah, it was a bit like, okay, we're going to go around the room, and I could feel myself introducing the team, and I introduced, well, I'm Chris, and this is what I do, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? But we got through the meeting, but it was a case where like the other team members really had to get behind me and make sure that we carried ourselves okay as a company.
Yeah. Do you think that's held you in like good stead when you're managing SDRs or managing account managers yourself? Because you've been in that situation yourself, and you know that obviously it's so easy to get confidence knocks in an agency. It's so easy to mess up with the client, put your foot in it, whatever you might do. Yeah. So do you have like sympathy now when you're training up these account execs or wherever it might be, and because you've done it operationally with those situations, so you're never hard on your team if they make up a mistake as well?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's critical for, we've both sort of been in more junior management roles, I guess.
Yeah.
We manage sales teams, but it's to do with like sales development reps and business development guys. It's being there for them, and it's helping them. Sales is a lonely world.
Yeah. If
you're going to create those silos, not from a wealth of experience, but it's like, how do we help up and comers? How do we support them in their meetings? Yeah. So I think I just wanted to. So one of the funniest stories I have of our office was we employed a full-time cleaner where I used to work. And I always remember, and I don't want to be horrible, but I remember her going into the shower, because we had a shower in the office, to clean it. And she sort of came out, as you can imagine, she accidentally turned the tap on while she was in there. And she came walking through the office. I'm not being horrible, but it was just something that always sticks out to me. Anybody that's listened to this that I used to work with will remember that very well. It was just one of those sort of like comedy gold moments.
That's quite.
But enough about me. I've embarrassed myself enough to kick us off, so you've got to step up now.
Embarrassing story. Well, for me, one of the worst ones for me is when I started, my first ever job was account manager, and that was sort of like a bit of the deep end. And there wasn't so much support in my first role because I was sort of the first account manager they brought on. It was like a growing agency, and they had a client who was recruitment based in Surrey, and I just passed my test at that time, and I didn't really not just passed my test. I just got my first car after uni. And mate, I basically drove to Surrey like this on the motorway anyway, because I'd driven the motorway like 3 times. So I'm just like sweating anyway in my suit and stuff. Couldn't find a parking space. And I went into this client, and we did an email marketing services for them. And the lady in there, she bullied me, mate, in terms of like, I didn't know what I was doing. It was one of my first meetings. She was walking off. I was left. It was basically in this room with 4 desks, and they were all recruitment consultants. And I'm trying to sell more email services, and she's picking up the phone when I'm mid sentence. I'm sitting there, my little notebook, like trying to act like the account manager. And then there's the boss comes out, and he just starts shouting out, "Anyone sandwiches, teas up," like that. And I'm trying to do this sales meeting, and in the end, I don't think I actually said what I wanted to say. I basically just sat there and ended up watching her do her job for about 20 minutes, and then I sort of got back to my car. I had a parking ticket. Yeah. Obviously.
It's not ideal, is it? Yeah.
Went back to the office, and I sort of was like, yeah, it went brilliantly.
Yeah.
Like it went really, really well, because it was one of my first meetings out on my own, and I was just so nervous about messing up, which I did. And I sort of said, yeah, no, they're going to go ahead with email services. And then I was like, because now I've got to like sign the client. So I then done it on the phone, and I managed to actually sell what I wanted to sell on the phone. But being in that first meeting, I don't know about you, when you're in a meeting on your own for the first time, you can't rely on your colleagues there to bail you out. When you stumble, when you fumble, it's all on you. And mate, from that point on, I hated going to that client. Not because they were a bad client, they weren't, they were a good client. But because I just thought that they thought I was amateur and I was just poor, and I was just a waste of time me being there. And every time I went there, they basically just made me a cup of tea, and I didn't do it. Like, they just had a conversation with like how their weekend was. It wasn't ever about the work.
It's hard, because it's like it's like we touched on last week. You have one chance to kind of introduce yourself.
Yeah. And first impressions count, particularly as an agency.
It's everything, especially in sales. You know, when you're a client face, let's strip it away from sales. When you're a client face, you know, and also job titles, they don't mean everything, but some people can be predetermined with their opinion of you.
Of course they can.
I mean, it's quite hard to sometimes overcome, if you're like an account executive or account director, and that, they want, even more. It can be hard. And again, there is nothing wrong with failing, guys. No. We're not going to try and inspire you and sort of, go down that route, but
everybody fails.
They do.
Everybody.
And it's about, how you work, You can always try and proactively stop that from happening. That's great, but it does happen. Anything can happen in work.
Yeah. What I learned on my one is that honesty matters, because when I went back to the office and said it worked, I double put myself in a position where now my colleagues, if they didn't think I was going to do it, they thought maybe I was. And honesty, always, if you have a bad meeting, or if you didn't make a sale in a meeting, don't feel embarrassed about that. Yeah. Sales is difficult, and that was my first job, one of my first meetings on my own. And from that point on, it was just like, be honest with your team, be honest with it, okay to fail. Like, they were still a client. There's always another bite of the cherry. But yeah, mate, everybody fails, and it's embarrassing when it does. Yeah. And the worst thing as well sometimes is when you do it in front of your colleagues, because you want their respect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And when you say something wrong, and then someone comes up to you after meetings like, you shouldn't have said that. You're like, what? Like, why didn't I?
Yeah, but then you almost have to put it back on them and say, well, listen, not be like, okay, well, what would you have done better? Be like, but listen, I want to learn from it. Let's take a step back. In your role, if you're going to call me out for that, what would you recommend next time I do better? And I'll take that on board.
100%.
And that's probably the best way you could ever approach something like that, because there are, we've come from smaller agencies or mid-sized ones, and everybody knows everybody, so you get a real good grasp of what you know people inside out. You see them more than your family sometimes, which is
most times
it's that simple.
Yeah.
But in a larger corporate world, I can't really compare to that, so I don't really want to talk about it. Yeah. But I know what some of the politics can be in those areas.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you can actually hide at a big company. Yeah. You can, if you do, you can hide away, and if you've got a massive team, say 20 marketing in the team or 20 salespeople, you make a mistake, you can probably hide. When you're in a small company, everything's out in the open, and every pound matters, every client matters, and stuff like that. And it almost adds the pressure onto that. Following on from your first job as an onboarding exec, were you still making mistakes even when you made that step up to account manager? Because I'm still making mistakes today.
I was going to say, it's point like just to jump in with that. Like we still make mistakes every day.
Yeah.
But it's it's a smaller scale.
Yeah.
And we're always learning. I think now probably where we sort of move to with our careers is you proactively know where you need to improve. We know ourselves a bit more.
Yeah. You're more self-aware.
Yeah. And we both probably mentor people along the way, and it's like you spot things in them and you try and help them on their path.
But we mentor people now, but we're still being mentored by, our MD or sales leaders that are helping you out, or pick someone outside the business, whether it's a family member. You're still getting mentors throughout life and stuff like that. You mentioned earlier that sales is one of the most loneliest jobs, which obviously it is. How do you cope with that element of sales when the going gets tough and you're on your own? How do you push through and get the motivation sometimes to? Yeah.
I think I've always been closely knitted with the business. So when times do get tough and you might be short on leads or things aren't closing when you want them to, or a client's not ready, you can't push a client. Like they come first. They're gonna go with something. They're gonna go with it.
Yeah.
But I think it's transparency. It's the bit before that leads up to those. If you don't make things easy for your company to get you as a salesperson, and you act as a cowboy, then you're gonna be in a lonely situation. Yeah. So I think you always need to be transparent with the business. Not fudge your forecast, not be unrealistic with timelines, and really try and give them the because they've got to manage the bigger the growth of the company, and you're responsible for that. Yeah. For feeding into it. So yeah, it's a good question. It'd be sort of interesting to see what your take on it as well.
For me, sometimes you can go if you're like generating your own leads. Let's say you're not just closing within the business, and you're responsible for generating leads on a consistent basis, and either passing them on to a sales manager to close, or trying to close them as well yourself. You can go 4 or 5 days, sometimes longer, with not even hearing a peep back. Yeah. You can hit voicemails all the time, cold replies to cold emails, no one getting back to you, unsubscribes, bounces, LinkedIn, no one replying. But then you get that one, and in that period, like the 4 or 5 days, if you do feel like giving up, you are self-critical. You're like, I'm a shocking salesperson, because no one's replying, and you keep trying to tweet your sales message, which is good, obviously, but sometimes you overdo it because you're thinking about how poor you are as a salesperson. No one's replying, and then it's weird because maybe 3 days on the bounce, you'll get lead, interest, send me more information, and it just makes up for all them 5 days of when you're just feeling like, so the message I've got for myself every day is just keep doing it every day and just go through the process every day, hit the numbers you need to hit. Everyone probably worked out how many calls or emails you need to send to get replies, to get sales, and you have to just hit them every day, even when you're not getting responses. So, but you can go like 4 or 5 days, and you have awful weeks, and then you have amazing weeks. Yeah. But over a period of time, over a year, you hit a baseline, obviously, total leads per year. Yeah.
I think the buzz is like what you said. It's like we've spoken about the low moments, but there are some incredible highs. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like sport. It's like because it's when you not break into a business, but when you finally see yourself making a difference there. And again, it's not like we don't just this isn't to plug products or anything like that, but we don't sell just a service. It's like we align with the business and prove value. Yeah. So how do we impact top line growth by ROI and by doing better things with them? Yeah. Now that's so powerful when company goes, Joe, what I really actually see this working, and then it's like, okay, well it's sort of game on. Let's form a partnership and let's take it forwards together. Yeah. And you're like, you want to ring all your mates up, and all your mates, if I rang you or you rang me, to be like, well, that's him sorted, he's happy. Yeah.
The buzz of getting that sale though, you do get a feeling of like when the agreement comes back and you get that notification they've signed it. Yeah. That satisfaction of the last 3 months of pitches and presentations and selling the business and selling yourself, it's almost like a satisfaction because you know that they've got trust and conviction in you as a person and in the business, and that is your job to make yourself seem trustful be trustful to the client as to the fact that they part with money. It's not easy to part money with somebody, and particularly if you're coming at it from a cold angle. Yeah. If you can then display value and then develop that trust in that relationship between yourself and another person. I always think of it as well that people are humans. They're not. There might be sales director of the biggest company in the world, right? But they're just they come home every night, they've got a family, they probably watch the same stuff you do on Netflix. And there was always a thing when I was younger about being so nervous to make that call because it's just like I don't want to get that rejection. But if people are just we're all humans, we all just have a conversation, and that's the job, is just to have conversations with people and try and deliver them value.
100% agree. Yeah, I hope they don't watch the same things that be on Netflix. Pretty Little Lies, isn't that? I'm joking. Right. But yeah, I mean the people element's so important. It's like, even when you go into a company, you know, when you go through those moments where you are a junior and you're with a CMO or CTO, whatever, and you're like, oh my god, this is a bit daunting. Like, they are real people.
Exactly.
And I've been an account manager or an executive level and sat in a room with a CMO, and I haven't been running the meetings, but they've almost been like more warmly drawn towards me because they know I'm a junior, and they want to almost like help me on my journey. Whereas would they be that forgiving with someone higher up the food chain?
Yeah.
On our side, maybe not.
Yeah.
And that is the importance ultimately. Like, you can never be a one-man band when you go in to see a client.
Yeah.
Yes, you can manage the relationship, day in, day out like that, but you're a team.
Yeah.
Right. It's very specialised. The areas we work in, like, marketing, you can't be a jack of all trades.
Yeah, you need to come at it from different angles, don't you? Everyone's got different skill sets. Someone might be more persuasive than another person. Another person might be able to deliver a pitch better.
Yeah.
And you're right, when you've got a team hitting it from all angles, they just trust what you're offering.
They do, yeah. And I think
you make that sale.
100%. I think the good thing, I would like to get your thoughts on this, is like, I sometimes treat a pitch or a bigger presentation as a meeting as a performance. Now, that's quite, I want to be transparent.
No, you're 100% now on the head there.
That doesn't mean that we go in there and we be fake and be like, this is but you put in so much preparation with a client, so you spend time scoping things out, mapping their people, process, technology, campaigns, whatever that might be, really getting to know their business.
Yeah. And
how that can then relate to whatever you're talking to them about. And then you go, okay, well, this is how it comes to life, and you have to be energetic. You can bounce. You can have a conversation in a performance.
Yeah, but mate, you've hit the nail on the head there, and I think it is right to. It's not being fake. That is not the right thing. Yeah. But you have to manage yourself and I mean, I've seen a picture. I don't know if you've seen this video going around of this primary school teacher. Right. He's in the corridor, and you can hear all these kids making so much noise. And literally, the teacher stops. It's on the CCTV. He stops in the corridor. He takes a deep breath and he goes, smiles, and walks in the classroom. And it's just like, he's getting ready to go into an environment where he has to be enthusiastic. He has to have a smile on his face, even if he's having the worst day in the world. And so you're absolutely right. What I try to do is, I've read a couple of books. I think I can't actually remember the name of the book now, but it's called State Management. Okay. And what you do is you get yourself into a state before you go into a meeting where you put yourself in a positive state. So even if you're having a bad day, you literally take 10 seconds before the meeting, deep breath, you smile, you think of something that you've had a good time previously, and then you just go into and have the performance because your state is up there, you're enthusiastic, you're sharp, and you're right, your hand gestures matter, your body language matters, your eye contact matters, the way you deliver and pronounce certain words and emphasise some things really, really matter. So it is a performance, because if you just went in there and you're having a bad day and you went,
it's hard.
Hi, yeah,
it's
we're
really
from
hard.
Harrison Wild next year, and basically we've got this, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. They want to feel that you're going to give them value.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to pep yourself up like an actor, get into the role of a salesperson and the role of somebody that can help somebody, and ultimately that happens. That does come true. Whereas if you went in there a bit downbeat and didn't really care, that's the other thing, you have to care. You know, when people say you have to care about the product, otherwise you can't sell it. I never used to think that was true. I always used to think, well, no, that's just selling. But if you don't care about the product, they can see it straight away. If you don't believe in the product, they can see through it straight away.
Yeah, you're representing the people in that room as well. So you'll have been speaking to a stakeholder, and they might be taking you in to show their boss for sign off, and if you go and just be like, and again, guys, this is really hard to do all the time because mental. We're going to speak about mental health and things like that further down the line. Yeah. But you can't. If you're in a bad mood, you can't combat that. Sometimes it's very hard. It's sometimes better to talk to the team about it. Again, I've very rarely seen that done, but it's just something where you might be able to do to combat it. But you have to be energetic, you have to be passionate, you have to range your voice, you have to show, you have to navigate a room, you have to say, listen, how does that relate to you in your marketing role? How does that relate to you in your technical role? Everyone's got their own agendas, and it's about bringing that together to achieve a common goal. We spoke about that last week. You get one shot at that. Because you can't then go in and just repaint a vision, because they'll go, no, these guys only do X, Y and Z, they don't do A, B, C.
Yeah.
And again, this is really good that we're starting to get this out and talk about it, because we think a lot of this is not daily struggles, but these are challenges people go, not just in sales, but client faces. It's really relatable.
Definitely. I don't know about people that are watching it, but I'm really enjoying creating these and having these conversations because, like you say, it's good to get certain things off your chest. We know certain things about what we do. There are some things that we're still learning. There are things that you're teaching me, and I'm teaching you in that respect. So this piece of content, is just out there, and hopefully people can get some value from that as well. So thank you for everybody for listening on this week's episode. It was so much better doing it in a room. Obviously, that only permits if you can work in the same space. Hopefully, over the next few months, we can get into a nice studio and start getting proper recording and production up and stuff like that. But in the meantime, if anyone wants to subscribe to the Sales Spec podcast, it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on Google Podcasts. Did you even know it's on Google?
Mate, I thought it was on the BBC, but
no, it's on LinkedIn. We post it as well. Your comments are appreciated, negative and positive. Anything you want to hear about, any suggestions or anything you want us to discuss and learn about, we'll be happy to have those conversations. Tell the people, thank you.
No, thank you very much. I think 100% agree with Jake. Just want to say, the people that are getting behind it, and feeding back, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
We're going to start going down some different angles with this as well. We've planned out with this first series, we're going to do eight episodes.
Yeah.
We're going to keep on the topic of sales.
Yeah.
And client-facing roles. We're going to bring in a huge special guest right at the end of the series, so you can
absolutely buzzing.
Watch this space for that one.
We've got a lot of things in the pipeline.
Yeah.
And we're going to start up on. This is just the content for now. We're going to be starting up a few digital channels, Instagram, doing smaller clips and stuff like that. We'll let everybody know when that comes out. So let's see where this goes. Let's keep having these conversations. It's great to have another conversation with you in person. So
lovely.
Thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you guys. Take care and we'll see you next week.